Good afternoon, my name is Jacob Mychuk, and I am here on behalf of Team Manage This. I apologize that I am not in class. I'm actually in East Texas for field biology, but I will be presenting to you in the form of this video lecture to teach you a little bit about overcoming resistance to change. First, why do employees resist change? And second, what are some methods that you can use to overcome those resistance to change? So without any further ado, let's just dive right on into it. First, you need to know that there are 13 different categories that the book uses to describe the ways in which employees resist change. These begin on page 423, and it begins with surprise. Surprise you would like to use in the aspect of you spring information on your employees without any pre-notice, without giving them any sort of knowledge beforehand. And whenever you dump information on your employees, such as we're changing the whole direction of this company to a completely different direction, and we need you on board with that. That's very much a big surprise that's going to ask a lot of your employees. So definitely be cognizant of that whenever you're asking your employees to help you facilitate these change. Next, the book likes to talk about inertia. Inertia I would describe as walking, not wanting to rock the boat, or keeping the status quo. Essentially, it is setting a goal for the employees, and the employees reach that goal and figure out the most effective way for them to continue to reach that goal continuously. And whenever you suddenly ask them to change, whenever you ask them to add on an extra process to their already list of tasks that they need to perform, this push that you're giving them, this extra pressure that you apply, can definitely cause negative feedback. It can cause some backlash that's going to definitely hinder change within a company or organization. Next, we have misunderstanding, ignorance, and lack of skills. This kind of all groups together under the employee just isn't really fit for the company, or the employee isn't fit for the new direction of the company. And whenever you have a situation like that that arises, you can try to train them more, you can try to discuss options, maybe you can resettle them within a different position within the company that would still provide them useful to you and still provide them useful to themselves and have a sense of self-fulfillment. But in worst case scenarios, you will find that sometimes people just aren't cut out for the job, and it's up to you as a manager to let them go and to go and seek out the people that are qualified for the job. Next, we have emotional side effects. Not going to touch too much on this, but for you as a manager, you need to be aware of your actions. Any direction that a company takes is going to have repercussions within its infrastructure, particularly within its employees. So you need to be cognizant of, if you take a new direction, if you ask something new of your employees, if the new status quo changes, what are going to be the emotional side effects? Are your employees going to be mad? Are they going to be sad? Are they going to be happy? These are things that you need to be aware of and that you need to play into consideration whenever you are going about implementing change. Moving right along, we have lack of trust. Whenever you as an employer do not trust your employees to accomplish their tasks, or whenever an employee does not trust you as a manager to figure out the best direction for the company for the most successful future, then it's very difficult for you to work together to try to establish a common goal. Really, before taking on any sort of change within management, it's definitely recommended to go ahead and take inventory of who do you trust within the organization, who do you feel trusts you, and then who do you feel that you need to work on building trust with, because you're going to find that the people that you need to build trust with are going to be the ones that are going to be hindering your change the most. So definitely be aware of that. Moving along, we have fear of failure. Fear of failure is a term that I first heard in my introduction to business class with Professor Aronica. Essentially, it is whenever your employees are afraid to take that first step in a direction they've never gone before. If you're asking your employees to take on a new task, it's acceptable to, I guess acceptable wouldn't be really the best term to use, but it's understandable to know their hesitation, to know their concern. Whenever you try something new for the first time, you're not just going to try to run into it 100 miles an hour because you might hurt yourself. Same way with business. You want to try to ease yourself into the new way in which things are done. So whenever you implement change, be cognizant, be aware that your employees may be scared of trying new things. And for that, the best thing you can do is to really hold their hand for the first little bit and then let them go. Let them try to take it on their own. And usually just you being able to give them the training wheels for the first little bit and then let them go is usually going to solve your problems. But be aware that fear of failure can hold back the performance of your employees whenever you're trying to implement change. Next we have personality conflicts and poor timing. I'm not going to go over either of these in too much detail. I think you can pretty much take most of these two at face value. Personality conflicts, you're going to find people in any business or organization that you go. Some personalities aren't going to be able to get along with others. And it's up to you as a manager to be able to manage people in such a way as to minimize outbreaks of dissatisfaction and to be able to manage your employees effectively so that they can work together and they can feel safe and productive working together. So personality conflicts, if people don't necessarily agree on the direction that a company is going, for employees that don't agree, it's even harder for a manager to try to jump in and try to settle disputes because it feels as if one side is pitted against another. Poor timing, not going to go into too much detail on that. For you as a manager, there isn't going to be much you can do to avoid poor timing. You can look on the calendar to see what upcoming events impact your directions and goals, but for the most part, this type of scenario is going to most negatively impact you whenever, say, you try to have a big meeting whenever you know that 4 of your employees are going to be on vacation. That's poor timing on your part, and it's also hindering the performance of the company because that meeting isn't going to be getting anything done because employees aren't there to take part in the meeting. So as a manager, be aware of the timing so that poor timing doesn't negatively impact change within your company. Lack of tact. I think lack of tact might be my personal favorite in this whole list, so much that I can just read it straight from the book. As we all know, it is not necessarily what is said that shapes our attitude toward people and events, it is how it is said. And with that, I couldn't agree more. Next, we have threat to job status and security. If you implement new protocols, new ways in doing things, it's going to change the balance for your employees of what they're expected to do and what they expect to receive as a result. So if you have an employee who is used to creating 5,000 units of product in exchange for $1,000 at the end of the week, that's the status quo. But if you suddenly say, hire more people into the company, and this worker is no longer required to create 5,000 units of product, they're suddenly only required to create 3,000 units of product. Okay, that's fantastic. That worker gets more time off. But at the same time, their pay is staying the same. For the employee, job security suddenly becomes an issue because, okay, sweet, we have more people here working and helping me out, but at the same time, that means that I am replaceable. If I don't perform up and above what these other people are that have been brought in, then I could be replaced by them, and then I'm out of a job. And so definitely that fear of losing your job or that fear that you could be replaced is definitely a negative connotation whenever you're hiring more people. Typically, you wouldn't think that hiring more people would make people think that they're about to lose their job. Usually you'd think that more people means growth, which means better business. And for the most part, you'd be right. But for employees who might not be thinking about things from a management perspective, a bunch of new faces might be kind of daunting. So definitely be aware of that. Okay, the book goes on to add breakup of work group. This is not a definition that I would agree with. Instead of breakup of a work group, I would more associate this with peer pressure. It's going to be difficult to implement change whenever you have people working together fighting each other. Whenever you have a group of people within the organization that are committed to the change, that are committed to creating these results, that are committed to satisfying you as a manager, and then you have a small group of people that would rather do things the old way, you're going to find that the old people set in their way that don't want to change and go with the new flow, they're going to become alienated by the rest of the company. You're going to find that employees will start to form their own cliques, and they will start to push the people that aren't falling in line. They'll start to push them out into almost becoming outcasts. And I've seen personally in my own work endeavors where people have been terminated just because being pushed out and being alienated just kind of starts this little downhill spiral that causes them to lose motivation, causes them to lose focus, and eventually causes them to lose their job. Next, we have passive-aggressive organizational culture. Best way that I can describe this is that communication is breaking down. Whenever you have people who are making snide remarks, who aren't able to effectively communicate and let each other know of their concerns, of what they approve of, what they disapprove of, if you aren't able to communicate just down to the very basics, then you aren't going to be able to effectively implement change. Now, if you have someone who's being passive-aggressive and therefore undermining you as a manager, you could expect even much more of a hindrance to you trying to implement change, because that negativity is going to be felt by other employees, and it's going to make you seem and be interpreted as a much less effective leader. And lastly, we have competing commitments. You could label this as conflict of interest. The best example I could give of this is that I work for Domino's, which I hope you're enjoying, by the way. I work for Domino's, so I'm not going to go and invest thousands of dollars in Pizza Hut stock because they're my competitor. I'd be much better off investing in the company that I work for than investing in a company that takes away from my business. So that would be one example. Another example would be if you're a pro-life type individual, I wouldn't expect you to be working for Planned Parenthood. Definitely a much more extreme end of the spectrum, but relevant nonetheless. People's personal preferences, their moral beliefs, and what they believe is ethical is going to play into how they conduct themselves at work and what tasks and roles that they are willing to take on and accept. And if your direction as a company suddenly clashes with their own personal beliefs and desires, then you're going to start to have serious problems and breakdowns. So, I've just given you 13 bullet points for reasons why employees resist change. So go ahead and make sure that you got all of those taken care of. Once again, it was surprise, inertia, misunderstanding, ignorance, lack of skills. And we have emotional side effects, lack of trust, fear of failure, personality conflicts, poor timing, lack of tact, threat to job status and security, breakup of the work group, passive-aggressive organizational culture, and lastly, competing commitments. Alrighty, so now that you know all the reasons why employees may resist change, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the 6 reasons why you can overcome these obstacles. These are going to be the 6 reasons and the 6 hows as to how you can overcome that resistance. So the first one that the book talks about is education and communication. So being able to educate your employees as to the direction, what the final end result should look like, is going to definitely help the transitional period. If from the very beginning steps, management and employees are on the same vision, have the same goal, it's going to make the transition and the change aspect of management much more effective and much more smooth in its transition. Next, we have participation and involvement. Essentially, this is where you try to get your employees involved from the very beginning, from research and development through the implementation process all the way to the oversight. If you can get your own employees involved in a personal level from the very beginning, then you're going to have employees who are committed to seeing the end result be successful. No one devotes their time into something in order to hope to see it fail, unless you're just a really horrible person, in which case I don't want you working for me. But you definitely want to have employees who feel a personal responsibility for the success because they devoted their time and effort into the change within the organization. Third, we have facilitation and support, and what this means is that you reward your employees for their good work throughout all the stresses and the extra burdens of organizational change. So, for example, this might be having a stress relaxation day for your employees where you send them to go get massages and coffee or whatever. It could be rewarding reaching certain milestones. If employees reach a certain number in sales, then bonuses for the whole department. It can be as simple as just pay increases. It can be whatever you want it to be. Anything that can positively enforce employees. As long as there's an exchange, as long as your employee is doing something for you and you do something for your employee. Which goes into negotiation and agreement. The example that the book gives on this is that an hourly clerical employee may, for instance, be put on salary in return for learning how to operate a new internet workstation. This really closely coincides with facilitation and support, but with negotiation and agreement, I would have to chalk this one up to just adding skill sets in exchange for added compensation for time and effort and energy. So whenever you have employees who are within an organization or company that is going through change, if those employees take on new tasks and responsibilities and take on the personal initiative to be able to understand, comprehend, and take on bigger, stronger challenges, if you have employees who develop themselves, then it is your obligation as an employer to go ahead and give those employees extra benefits, to go ahead and say you are worth more because you know more, because you are capable of more. And I think that's the best way that I can put negotiation and agreement. Next to last, we have manipulation and cooptation. This is the deliberate holding and withholding of information to exact a certain result. For example, if you are a manufacturing company and you are planning on implementing a new automation program that's going to increase sales fourfold and decrease your costs, is going to cut your costs in half. That's fantastic. You tell all of your employees, you get them on board with it from the very beginning, and you work on it, and then a year and a half into it, you're 2-3 months away from completion, and then you tell your employees, oh, by the way, as a result of adding all this automation, we're going to lay off half of the workforce here. Whoa. From a management perspective, you may have just did the best thing in the world by installing these new machines and these new ways of creating product, and the numbers are fantastic. But from your employee's standpoint, from a personal standpoint, you're not going to get motivation from them if you tell them from day one that, hey, there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to get laid off at the end of implementing this new idea. If you withhold that information until a later date, you will be able to get more people on board and be able to exact more change as a result of people being unaware as to what may come further on down the line. So this can border on some moral and ethical decisions for some people. really this is going to be up to you contextually to determine if this is an avenue that you would pursue. And lastly, you have explicit and implicit coercion. I would simply put this as being if an employee is not bringing about change, if your employee is not doing their duty, if they aren't going along with the flow of the rest of the organization, it is your responsibility as a manager to step in and say, hey, this is what we are paying you to do. If you don't do it, you're not going to get paid. Or, hey, you know that promotion that you're really looking into, well, you're not going to get it if we don't start seeing some results. Or it can be something as even as depressing as telling them that, hey, you're not going to get your bonus because the numbers weren't good last quarter. These can be very tough decisions and some tough things for you as a manager to take on and to handle. But sometimes tough love, as you could also go to describe this, can be a very strong motivator in order to cause change to come about. It is definitely a much harsher and colder approach to motivating your employees, but it also seems to be more of the slap in the face. It will get their attention. So that pretty much covers what I have. Once again, that was 13 bullet points on why employees resist change, and then 6 bullet points on ways that you as a manager can help your employees overcome this resistance to change. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope the quality of this footage wasn't too horrible, but without any further ado, I'd like to just go ahead and pass this back over to the rest of my team.